November 6, 2006. Modern gaming was getting better and better. With better graphics, stories could be told a lot clearer, and this was capturing the young millennial generation by the handful. In this day and age, the joke, "It's because you're always on that damn video game," was a reality. Mothers and news networks advanced on millennials from the north, claiming video games were ruining the nation. As a way to counter this frontal assault, the History Channel joined in on the side of the millennials to meet the mothers on the front lines. Realizing if children were playing video games for fun, what if they released a video game that is fun to play but also teaches children history? An alliance was formed with Colonial HQ, a game developing company located in Slovakia, and they set up north to create something to defeat the mothers and the news outlets' heavy shellings of complaints and blame. By the 6th day of November 2006, the History Channel released a new game called Civil War: A Nation Divided, which was received mediocre. Game developers mostly ignored the historical war due to the long reloads of the weapons from the time and the inaccuracy of said weapons. And this game was almost instantly forgotten. It did do well enough to receive a sequel, however, which was worse in every way, but that is a lesson for another time. On June 2nd, 2023, history enthusiast Juby Scott, with the help of Colonial soldier Private George Dearborn, examined this game to see how accurate the History Channel really was.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Muskets in Media. I am your host, George Dearborn, and today we are going back to the Civil War. But unlike the Hunter, we will be looking at the actual weapons of the Civil War, muskets from both sides of the war, and we will even dive into some of the other weapons used in the Civil War. Civil War: A Nation Divided was created by Cauldron HQ and published by the History Channel itself. This is not the only time the History Channel has done video games, believe it or not. They have done a sequel to this game, Civil War: Secret Missions, Great Battles Medieval, which was a console RTS game based on the 100 Years' War, a World War II shooter called Battle of the Pacific, another game about the Roman Empire, the Alamo, the Crusades, and Ice Truckers? The game starts off with bringing you to the menu, and honestly, the aesthetic of this game feels great. There is no linear story for this game. You take over being a soldier from the Union or Confederate side and play through 12 of the battles during the Civil War. Honestly, if your goal was to show multiple types of battles during the Civil War, this is a great way to do it. Instead of trying to create a narrative, simply allowing players to see the war from different soldiers' perspective is not a bad way to do it. Now you don't need to explain why Private John Jensen was at both the Battle of Gettysburg and also at the Second Battle of Bull Run. Once you select a level, the game will start with an introduction to what is leading up to the battle you are going to be playing, giving you names of important soldiers, tactics that the Union and Confederate soldiers used, and showing it with a strategy map and historical photos. Essentially catching the player up before they take control, telling you which Battle of Bull Run you are fighting, telling you which day of Gettysburg you are about to experience, even showing you the small Confederate force sneaking into the Union camp the night before a huge battle to sabotage. One issue that people have with this game is you will, of course, not finish the battle fully. The game has a problem with simply just dropping you into key points of the battles, and then they will just simply end the mission abruptly. At the end of the mission, the narrator will come in and read a paragraph explaining the outcome of your actions, and how the battle will continue without you. Even when you beat the final level, the game will still just abruptly end, as after beating the last mission, you will just get the credit scene and that is it. You can go back and play the missions again, of course, but there aren't any collectibles or anything to do other than play the game. While it doesn't seem like much, I will tell you this, when I first played the game while studying the Civil War, I was impressed. This game is clearly not for everyone. This is for people like me who want to experience history, and this was one of the first attempts of making it an FPS. While most people who played it will call it boring and garbage, As a history person, it is nice to be on the hills of Gettysburg, charging over the bridge of Bull Run, running through the trenches of Petersburg. If you know these battles, it's awesome to see these come to life in a video game. My biggest gripe about this, however, is that the Civil War was mostly musket-focused weaponry, and while the American Revolution showed the ferocity of guerrilla fighting, European tactics were still being used in the US Army. In this game, it's more like Call of Duty, where you are running and gunning down tens of foes at a time with your musket. I can see they were trying to appeal to as many people as possible with this game, and to show them some history, but even just seeing some of the enemies out of bounds, lined up firing, would have been nice. Also, can I just say the graphics, honestly, I really like the graphics in this game. I don't know if PS2 games all looked like this, but I love the way this game looks, honestly. It looks old, it looks gritty, it looks gross, and in some ways, with explosions happening everywhere, it can look terrifying. I don't know why, I just really like how the game looks, as weird as that may be. With that being said though, let's look at these fantastic weapons of the First Industrial Revolution. For all gun enthusiasts, this is the war you should start to look into, as the American Civil War was considered the first modern war. The reason for this is the days of muskets, while still here, this would be the last American war where they were so heavily featured. During the time of the Civil War, many new guns came out, and some of them are featured here. The infamous Spencer repeating rifle was one of the first to be manufactured for lever-action rifles. A fun fact about this gun is that once the gun was finished being developed, it was brought to President Lincoln himself to fire, and Lincoln fell head over heels in love with it and instantly had it introduced into the cavalry units of the Union Army. This was the beginning of the decline for the musket world. In-game, this rifle is visually accurate in how it works and fires. The problem I have with this, however, is when you need to reload these, you pull a tube out of the buttstock and put the bullets in through there. In the game, you simply just replace the tube, which is what I used to believe how the weapon would work to reload. Imagine my surprise when I found out when I got older and learned that this was not how it was actually done. Cavalry having a new weapon was great and all, but sadly there was no cavalry in the game. So this game would simply just spawn you in with different weapons for you to use for each mission. Others include the Henry rifle, 2 different types of revolvers, Sharps rifles, and of course, the musket. Let's take a look into that right now.
They're on the run! We got him! We got him! Victory, man! Give him the barrel, boys! Victory, man! Victory, man!
So as you can see, it's a very basic render of a musket. Honestly, it's only even called musket in the game. But if you're a history nerd like me, you would know that there are mostly only 2 types of muskets used in the Civil War. The Springfield Model 1861 rifle was manufactured in the Union, and the 1853 British Enfield rifle musket, which was produced by the Confederacy. These guns were essentially the same thing, and of course during the war both sides would confiscate dead soldiers' rifles, especially the Confederates since they had less manufacturers than the Union. Both had rifling, both were accurate up to 200 yards, both could attach bayonets, and both were cap-lock musket rifles. The age of muskets was starting to fall, with rifling now being standard. Soldiers standing side by side was becoming obsolete. But because this is how warfare always was, these rifles killed so many people in the line battles that tactics needed to change. 621,000 people had died in the Civil War because of weapons like these, the Gatling gun, and overall new weapons of warfare were becoming monsters. Times were about to change on how war was fought. Anyway, if you look at the side-by-side of a Springfield, the Enfield, and the game, it could be either of them, honestly. This game's reloads was one of my personal favorites due to nostalgia. As a kid, if I ever used a musket out while playing outside, I would do this reload for my fake gun. There are, of course, some flaws. The soldier already pours in an already opened gunpowder paper cartridge, pulls out a mini ball separately, then rams the ball down super quick. Then pulls the hammer back and it's ready to fire. Let's start from the beginning. The paper cartridge contained everything all together. To open it, soldiers would tear the top away with their teeth and then spit out the paper. They would then put the gunpowder down the barrel, then toss the paper, put the mini ball in, and ram it down. Thanks to the mini ball, ramming a bullet down the rifle barrel was as easy as doing it with a musket with a round ball ammo in the Revolution. Once the ball was rammed down and the ramrod was returned, the soldier would then simply need to place the caplock nipple on the striker, where the hammer, when the trigger is pulled, will slam down on it and ignite the gunpowder and fire the weapon down range. Honestly, for a PS2 game, impressive that they only missed 2 details for this weapon. When you melee with the weapon, it's all accurate as well. A lunge attack with a bayonet, of course, hitting someone with the butt of the gun as well, then bringing it back to firing position. Once again, for a PS2 game, very impressive. Civil War: A Nation Divided was for history nerds who wanted to experience history and have fun doing so. Weapons are awesome in this game, the AI is clunky, and no one really stands in lines, and the musket is only missing 2 steps. For one of the earliest attempts at making an FPS Civil War game, I honestly give it props. With that being said, when it comes to muskets, we are going to give it a semi-accurate depiction of muskets and an inaccurate depiction of how the battles were truly fought. Sadly, this game is abandonware now, but if you ever get the chance to try it, go for it. But only if you like the Civil War for what it is, and not for your next Call of Duty obsession. Thanks for watching, everybody. Happy Season 2 for Muskets and Media, and we will see you all next month.